Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. We have a great show with Jessica Ballouli, who's the CEO and founder of Nurture for Women. We get into all things women's health. We talk about what her recommendations are for you to be healthy prior to menopause and perimenopause, what you can do during menopause and perimenopause, and what she's doing in the city to help so many women. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Warren and Dillon, the Midland's trusted personal injury lawyers. Here's some great advice from our sponsor.
Hey there, Brett Warren with Warren and Dillon. I wanted to talk to you today about some of the biggest mistakes you can make when it comes to dealing with insurance companies. I think one of them is giving a recorded statement to the insurance company. The problem is that the insurance companies, they're doing these recorded statements to help their case and to hurt yours. And so they're going to ask some sneaky questions that are designed to hurt your case. One quick example, they'll ask how many feet away you were from the other car when you first noticed them. Nobody really knows the answer to that. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, you should have noticed that other car, and now you're 20% at fault. So do yourself a favor, just don't do it or talk to a lawyer first. Trusted advice, proven results, Warren and Dillon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Health of It. I'm Dr. Randy here with Dr. Tom, as always, and we have a great show today. We have Jessica Ballouli, who's the CEO and founder of Nurture for Women, and she is a women's health nurse practitioner and a certified menopause specialist through the Menopause Society. So welcome to the show.
Thanks
for being on here.
Thanks for having me.
So you kind of said that nothing's off limits beforehand.
I may retract that.
Yeah. Then I started asking questions, and you said I may change my mind. So you talk a lot, it sounds like, in your sessions with women about sex. Mm-hmm. That always comes up
right
somehow.
First, he called her a sex expert. That's
And you were telling me before the show, I think we just start with like one of the most common questions, which is how much more does girth matter than length?
Oh my goodness. Okay, we're starting right there. So
we can start. Maybe let's start here. Let's start with telling everybody like who you are and a little bit about your background. That seems normal.
Yeah. So I've been in healthcare since 2007. I went to NYU in New York City, thought I wanted to go into anesthesia, ICU, all of that. And then I started seeing really sick people and thought, oh my gosh, how do we keep them from getting here? And I also fell in love with caring for women. I noticed that we were disproportionately affected by, we spend more years with chronic conditions than men. So I was really interested in like, how do we keep women healthy? And so initially I went back and I got my family nurse practitioner here at the university at South Carolina, and quickly realized I didn't know enough. We don't get trained in women's health. I had a semester. I mean, this is like a huge push right now, right? Like everyone's in the menosphere. Everyone's talking about how little education we get about women. And so I thought, well, I should really actually go back. If I want to do women's health, I need to do it right, and I need to go back. And I went to Duke, and I actually did my WHMP. So I'm a women's health nurse practitioner as well, and started working at Park Ridge at Prisma. Worked there for a few years, and realized like what I love to do and what my little niche there was menopause. Perimenopause, menopause, and I got so busy, I couldn't maintain a schedule that did everything they wanted me to do and everything I wanted to do in the way that I like to do it, which is to spend time with women, really like uncovering the layers of what's actually going on. And so I decided I'm going to open my own practice. And I left thinking like, oh, I hope this works. Like maybe some people will follow me. Maybe I will, maybe I can actually have a job doing this. And quickly, like as of that we opened in November, and I'm like a solo provider. I was doing everything until just about a month ago. And I realized now, like women really need this. And women want to be heard. Like gone are the days where women are okay with going to their PCP or their GYN and having them say like, everything's fine, you're normal. When women in their early 40s into their mid 50s are like, no, I'm not normal. Like, I don't feel good. And So, labs, like people will run labs and they'll say like everything looks normal, but like that's just what the labs look like
Right.
in perimenopause, but nobody feels good. So I decided like I'm going to dedicate my time and my practice, and we're going to talk about like what women can be doing to make themselves feel better through this like time of recalibration in their lives, because that's really what it is. Like,
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Columbia Family Chiropractic, with 3 easy-to-get-to locations, one in Forest Acres, which is by Trader Joe's, one in O'Neill Court by the DMV, and one in the Northeast by Sand Hills. You'll be sure to have somewhere near you. They offer a ton of services from corrective care, on-site digital x-rays, spinal decompression for bulging or herniated discs, dry needling for injuries, pediatric care, and a Class 4 laser. They accept all your major insurances. And if you mention this ad, you'll get a discount on your first appointment. Check out their website at cfc4health.com or Google Columbia Family Chiropractic. That's cfc4health.com.
Mary Claire Haver, everybody knows who she is. She calls it the zone of chaos, and that's really what perimenopause is. Your hormones look normal on paper, but they are up and down and all over the place, and you don't feel good. And it's not just the women who feel it, right? Like if you're married to a woman, if you're in a partnership with a woman, you're experiencing perimenopause and menopause as well, because it affects every aspect of our lives, every body system, everything. And so that is just like, that is what I do. And that's really where my passion is like, how do we get you feeling like yourself again? Because that's really the number one thing that I hear is like, I don't feel like myself. And I'm going through it right now. So like I get it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm 42, almost 43, started experiencing these same things, probably on a lesser, like I am not in the absolute thick of like where things feel the worst, but my brain isn't functioning. Things are not connecting as well as they used to. And it's hard. You don't feel like yourself. And so this is what I love.
It usually starts when? Just give us an age range. 35 would be earlier, and then 55, it's kind of over.
Yeah. So menopause is considered normal when it happens. So menopause is the cessation of periods for 1 year, right? So perimenopause is the time that surrounds that up to the year after that final period. It's considered normal to have your final period from 45 to 55. Anything after 55, like you want to make sure that like bleeding is not, and we don't usually see it that long, but it's still considered normal. Before 45, if you go through menopause, like it's abnormal and you absolutely need to be on something as long as it's safe for you to be. So you need to be on hormones. Like that's just, there's too many years of chronic disease that can take place, with the cessation of like with your ovaries petering out before the age of 44, 45. So, but it is considered normal. The average age of menopause here in the United States is 51 and a half. Oh. So if you consider that you can have symptoms for maybe 10 years or so prior, and you start going through menopause at 47 or 44, 10 years really is a pretty, I don't want to say that's average, but that's a pretty realistic time, amount of time. I wouldn't say that that's for everyone, but there are women who start to notice. And we're talking about the changes in the hormones, particularly as it relates to progesterone and estrogen. So those are the main sex hormones for females that we think of, right? Testosterone has a huge role. There's so many things we could talk about right now, but testosterone is important, but it doesn't really care about menopause. It just peaks at like 25 and then it starts to, downward decline. Progesterone and estrogen do care about what's going on in your body and when menopause is going to happen. And, progesterone starts to decline. It really is kind of this gradual decline and usually happens late 30s. And estrogen, like, it just starts to get crazy. So, like, when you think about crazy periods and all of that stuff, like, that's usually, it could happen at any point in time, but most women start to notice that, in their early 40s, that things are different. My periods don't seem the same. My emotions don't seem the same. And there's a good reason for that. It's because, hormones are not doing what they used to do. They're not reliable anymore. So
why do you think it for the women that it happens early, Why do you think that is? Like, what process is creating that? And what I always get worried about is messing with something that nature created. Like even periods in general, the body, nature, God, whatever anybody believes in that's listening, that was a design of the body for women to go through. Right. And so when there's abnormalities early, they just put girls on chemicals, or hormones or whatever it may be. And then the concern is like, we're now messing with something that nature is creating. And if it's happening early, my first question would be, why is it happening early? Or what do we think is leading to it happening early? And that's where I always want to start.
Yeah. So that's a really loaded question, because we also in that question, we talked about hormones and kind of lumped them probably between birth control and hormone therapy. So big difference. So something we have to at some point get to and distinguish between the two. But why might it be happening earlier? Well, there is a lot of discussion. I mean, genetics can play a role in some form or fashion. A lot of the women who go through menopause earlier, their moms did too, or who start having, but it's not just that. I mean, hormones can change for a variety of reasons. We can look at insulin resistance. We can look at endocrine disruptors. We are in contact with some stuff that nobody was
constantly.
Constantly. Every year that this world evolves, new chemicals are created. It's just, it's what's in our food, it's what's in our homes, it's what's in the air and we're breathing. So lots of endocrine disruptors can make things wonky. Insulin resistance plays a huge role in metabolism and weight gain. And so periods can get crazy for that reason. Periods can become crazy for things like fibroids. And so that's a really loaded question, because periods can get wonky and there can be reasons that happens. From a standpoint of actually going through menopause early, it can be genetic. Often we think it's autoimmune. And then there's the question of why do these autoimmune things happen, right? Is this partially genetics? Is this partially what we've been exposed to? There's definitely epigenetics involved. It's not just one or the other. So that's a big deal. It can be because women had pelvic radiation. When you think about, I have a sweet patient who had pelvic radiation for a cancer, and she is now menopausal at 30. So that could be a reason. It can be surgical if something had to be removed for some reason. If you had to remove the ovaries for some reason, that could happen. But I do think that the majority of primary, if you're thinking of ovarian insufficiency and things like that, early menopause, I think there's probably likely an autoimmune reason for that.
Yeah.
So, but we see lots of we see it more and more. And so I think there's got to be some sort of environmental component.
Is there a threshold? And this is going to sound bad coming from a guy, so I got to just clarify as best I can. So is there a threshold where the discomfort should just be the discomfort because it's a part of the process? And to give an analogy or an example, childbirth. So women go through childbirth, and that is extremely uncomfortable. I'm never going to have to do that, and that's why I'm trying to be sensitive around this. But when we mess with the process of creating comfort for delivery. And there are time and a place, I guess, for all of that. But in doing so, there are consequences with the epidural, let's just say, in this example. Okay? So now I jump to menopause, and we know that the ovaries at some point have to do that, whether the timing or our timing is 45 to 55 being the normal range. If somebody's at 30 or 35 or wherever that is, even in the 40 to 45 to 55 range, should there just be some discomfort that we allow that then either makes the process quicker, smoother, the long term? I wonder if there's and I don't know, I've never looked into is there a extremely holistic practice of this anywhere in the world. So not just the US, we do all kinds of stuff, weird shit, I think, or we treat too quickly. Is there anywhere in the world where like, I'm thinking even just like tribes in Africa where nobody's messing with anything. It is literally watching nature take its course.
Yeah. So
And looking at that and
Yeah.
like, what are those women? How are they doing?
That's good. Well, and to piggyback off that too,
You're talking to two men. This is great.
I'm like when my kids were getting their teeth, I was like, you know, everyone's like, pump them full of Tylenol, just give them
Right,
drugs,
right.
hammer them with drugs. And I'm like, their little liver does not need drugs. Every human in the history of the world has had to get their teeth in. I think they can handle a little discomfort for a few days without pumping them full of drugs.
Well, this is not discomfort. So let's just like separate. So we compared childbirth to menopause, and they're totally different things, like from a discomfort standpoint. So, you know, getting an epidural, that's a woman's choice, whatever she decides to do as far as like, you know, the pain of delivery. It's hard. So whatever they
Yes.
choose to do, totally fine.
And sometimes they can't choose it.
Yes,
Like
and
sometimes there's
they can't
C-section and all
choose.
kinds
yes,
of things.
and I've done both. I have had an unmedicated VBAC, and I have had a, you know, so like I understand the spectrums, and those are like whatever you decide to do, totally cool with that. When we talk about hormone therapy, we are talking about the cessation of hormone production from the ovaries. And when that happens, women's health declines. Okay, there's no way around that. Estrogen is a very, very potent and part of our anti-inflammatory processes. So when we lose it, the inflammation sets in. Whether that's, you know, and that we're talking about from a brain, a bone, a heart perspective, we know that all of those chronic conditions increase, they skyrocket.
Right.
Okay. And women spend more years of their life with chronic condition. Their risk for all of these diseases increase after their periods.
through it,
So there used to be a theory, and the theory has kind of gone out of favor, but there used to be this theory like for the grandmother hypothesis, and that the reason women used to die young, right? Like our life expectancy over the last 100 years has increased exponentially.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of crazy. So the idea was like women weren't meant to live that long, and then grandmothers helped to rear their children. It's kind of gone out of favor, but it is something to think about. It is interesting. But really, like women for a lot of years, they didn't live past menopause. They reproduced and they died, like, or they died during childbirth or whatever.
Right.
And there was no, like, that's just from looking at things over the, you know, millennia, like that's just how it was. But after all of this time of studying and looking at how important these hormones are in our reproductive years and how they keep us safe and healthy, and we look at all-cause mortality, you know, with and without hormones, and we can talk about what hormone therapy means and what, you know, we know that our lives for the majority of us, the vast majority of us, are healthier when we have those hormones. So it also needs to be discussed that when we talk about these hormones, we're talking about them for the majority of women from a bioidentical space. We're talking about chemicals. They're still chemicals. They still were made in a lab. But when they're bioidentical, if you pulled out some progesterone from your body and you pulled out this micronized progesterone capsule that was made in a lab, they are molecularly identical. And they bind to the receptor sites exactly the same and have the exact same response. It's not like taking a progestin, which is in a birth control pill, and synthetic, and binding it into that receptor site. You're not going to get the same response. In fact, when you do that, often it's more inflammatory. Now, not always, because there are women who, like, we need to cut, they don't do well with their own progesterone, and we need to bind something else to that to protect their uterus, or, as a birth control pill, if they have PMDD, right? If they have really, really bad periods and thoughts before they move into their period. There are times where like a synthetic is a good option, or there are times when women need to be protected from sperm, and like a birth control pill is a really
Protected
good idea.
from sperm.
But in general, well, you know what I mean. They don't want to get pregnant.
That needs to be a T-shirt.
So they don't want to get pregnant. And so like there are really good reasons to use these synthetic hormones at times. But what I do in a menopause space, for the most part, when it's appropriate, I mean, there are times when synthetics are more appropriate for whatever reason. We usually start with the bioidenticals, but if for some reason someone doesn't tolerate or has bleeding or whatever, there might be a reason where we go to a synthetic. But when we're talking about hormone therapy and like, should we just let nature run its course and not, put any of this in? We're talking about bioidentical hormones that are molecularly the same as what your body made or makes. And therefore, when we keep those in your body, you are more protected. And I don't want to say, because this is kind of like coloring outside the lines a little bit. We only have certain studies, but what we did see in many, many studies is decreased all-cause mortality with some of this hormone therapy. So, should we let nature run its course? That's certainly, people feel that way. But we have known for a long time, and it's through observational studies since the 80s, that women who are on hormone therapy fare very well over their counterparts. So it's not that everyone should be on it willy-nilly. It's not that I think that everybody is a good candidate, but the studies show that women, the vast majority of women, hormone therapy is a very safe and effective option at helping them feel better,
Right.
getting rid of discomfort, as you discussed, but also at keeping them healthier for longer.
Right.
And so you would say, if this is what I'm hearing you say, there's a percentage of women who this is just going to happen to no matter what they did. It's like a genetic or
early?
the
Okay,
early.
so you're talking about the early.
The early or the discomfort side of it.
So there's a big difference too, though, between like, early, like women who are 30, 35, 40, who go through this early. And we can see often in labs, like something like a primary ovarian insufficiency. We can sometimes see that in labs. We know that they're not getting periods. We're looking at all of these things, and we're ruling out other causes as far as like we're doing pregnancy tests. We're looking at specific hormones. We're ruling that out. And a GYN, an REI, an endocrinologist who deals in fertility, like we can all look at those things. But there's a big difference between like your ovaries just petering out at 30 or 40 and you being like, I'm uncomfortable and I want to try something now. Like those are two very different things.
Yeah, well, from a cause. So I kind of meant more from a cause
Yeah.
perspective. Like there's going to be a percentage that just everyone in their family had it. They could live a perfect lifestyle. They're going to have some sort of issue. Then there's a percentage who they've been pumping themselves full of synthetic hormones for 20 years, not exercising, eating like crap, not sleeping, stressed out. And that's just taxing their body too.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a percentage by the time they get to you. It's like, well, you've been doing this for 20, you've been on birth control since you were 14 years old.
Yeah.
And your ovaries can't handle it. Your liver can't handle it. And, your lifestyle itself over 25 years probably led to this point.
Yeah.
Now here's our only options left.
But birth control doesn't make you go through menopause early. We don't have any research that shows that. Definitely, it can decrease libido, and there are a lot of other things that, like being on, synthetic hormones, can make you gain weight if that's like what your reaction is to it. It's so different. I mean, some people go on synthetic hormones for birth control and feel incredibly better than they used to, whether it's from a mental health aspect or weight gain issue. I mean, it's varied how, and it also depends on what you got put on. Like a lot of the times when you go to your GYN or whoever prescribes your birth control, we have one that we like start with and we're like, I'm comfortable with these 5. There's like thousands of them. So like you start one on and for someone, and that's not really what they need necessarily. And you got to titrate it a bit, like depending on how comfortable you are without what's out there, you might not know like what birth control might be better for the symptoms. So people can be on these birth control pills and have more symptoms or fewer symptoms. I wouldn't say necessarily though that like it's causing them to go through menopause earlier. Now, women who are on birth control pills, sometimes like that's actually historically been like the first line option for menopause, perimenopause. Like if the women my age go in to see their GYN and they say, hey, I'm having heavy periods, I'm starting to get some hot flashes, some night sweats. Like typically what they're going to say is like, well, let's put you on a birth control pill. Let's put you on a synthetic birth control pill. And for some women, like, that's fine. Like it's considered treatment. It is in its weird way hormone therapy. It's just synthetic hormone therapy. And it works because it's still, they're pretty similar and they bind to those receptors sort of like not perfectly, but they bind. So there are women who do really well with that as kind of like a getting them through to that place where their periods stop, they recalibrate and they don't need any pills. You're supposed to come off of birth control pills by the time you're about 55. So yeah, but I don't think that the women who have been taking birth control, I don't want anyone to think that like you've been on birth control for 20 years and oh my gosh, you're going to go through menopause early. There's nothing that says that at all. Now, but I also don't want to say that like we aren't going to find studies that say that like your environment and the things you put in your body like don't play a role in when you go through menopause.
Sense.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yes.
Exercise, sleep, stress.
Those
it
things
has to be.
absolutely. But I don't have anything on birth control.
And they're never going to make those.
Yeah, they're
studies.
never.
No,
No.
definitely not. And now I'm hearing people say, "Oh, these new birth controls aren't like the old birth controls, which had way more hormones or something." Like they're always
now we have like some
changing it.
we have like Nextstellis. We have some really cool birth control pills that like if I was going to put someone on a birth control pill, that's what I'd choose over some of the old crap. You know, so there are some really good options for women who need birth control. This is really what I do, and I do prescribe birth control pills. I have women who felt better on a birth control pill than they did on the hormone therapy that I initially put them on, and I'll switch them. Like I work with them to choose what they want. But you know, typically women who are coming to me because they're perimenopausal and what was offered to them was a birth control pill, and that's not what they want. But I don't think though that we can fairly say that like being on a birth control pill. In fact, I think there might be some information that's the opposite that says that if you were on birth control,
But normally those are created by the birth control companies.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like who funds the research?
Right.
It's a very fair discussion about who funds the research. But in general, like menopause is predetermined in a lot of cases by your genetics. But sleep is a huge piece. Did you exercise? Do you exercise?
Sure.
What do you eat? What's your stress like? Women are carrying so much more stress. I mean, I hear it every day when we do our consults about the stress that women have. Like we're perimenopausing in a time like no other. Women are working more outside of the home, plus returning to families that they've got. They've got social media. Women who don't have children are often in these high-powered roles, or maybe they're working in a job that they hate and they don't like. There's just chronic stress that I think our parents didn't, our moms didn't necessarily have to deal with. It's just a completely different set of rules right now. And there's just so many other stressors. I mean, things take so much time. Like I think about how much free time like we could have had if we didn't have social media and we didn't have like, there's just so many different things. And so the way that we're doing this as this generation, this like millennial, Gen X, like we're all doing this in a way that is completely different than menopause was ever done. So
well, and on the man side, which I know this is about women.
No, that's good. That's all right.
But the men who get testosterone and feel amazing on testosterone.
Yeah.
Their testosterone's in the tank, and you hear like there's no shame in getting testosterone. If you're at 200, you need more, all the stuff. But most of the guys that I know, if that's happening, especially if they're younger than, let's say, 45, it's like, I think you could go lift some weights and eat better and sleep a little bit. Like, maybe if your testosterone's 150 at 30 years old, it's because your lifestyle is just so bad. So maybe you should do that first, which I think I'm bringing a little bit of, and it might be different for women. So, but that's generally my thing with guys. I'm like, all right, if you really need testosterone, you should be lifting weights 5 days a week. You should be eating perfectly.
But
you should
men
be
can
sleeping.
reverse that. Yes, men can do all of those things and they can reverse it, but women can't reverse that. Like once your ovaries start to go like, that's it. That's it. It's not like we can say, oh, like I can make menopause not happen. Like it's going to happen.
Right.
We think in the next, I don't know how many years, I've heard a discussion about it. Like there might be something that genetically someone can do. And I know they're studying all of that stuff. Not that I think that's a great idea, but we can't do anything about that.
That can
like
stop. It would stop menopause from happening.
Like people have
You'd
talked
be 90
about that.
with a period.
Can you
still?
imagine? I
boy.
know that sounds awful, but like I know that they're looking at that, like at those kinds of things, and they're I don't think that's necessarily where we should be headed, but you can't wake the ovaries up and say like, here we go, like you're just going to keep working forever. Whereas testosterone in a man, yes, it can decline, and yes, there are a lot of things that you can do, but like to increase it, and it will eventually decline and not be like testicle strength. Yeah. But I don't like, that's just not what women are not able to do that. And so that's why it's so unfair for women when everything stops and it's just like, well, without it, your brain, you've got brain fog. You've got, and no, I am not discounting the lifestyle part of all of this. When patients come to see me in my office, they get so tired of hearing me say, it's a tool, not the plan. I say that all the time because every single thing that I prescribe or I recommend is a tool. It is not the plan. So if we are doing hormone therapy or if we're doing GLP-1 medications, or whatever it is, if we're, we have to have a bigger plan. We have to have more than just like, this is what we do. And some patients are really open to that. And I love that when they're open to like, let's set you up a plan. Let's set you up kind of like, let's calculate your daily expenditure. Let's get you like, let's figure out how much you should be eating. Let's talk about your sleep. Let's look at all of these different pieces. So it's important to look at the big picture. But these tools are life-saving for many women who are in a spot of their lives where their ovaries are nuts and they feel like...
Ovaries are nuts.
Kind of walked into that one. But, there's something going on and they feel terrible and they can't complete their tasks and they can't be like... It's because of their ovaries. Like we can replace that in a very, very healthy, natural, normal way. This is the most natural type of medication you can have. It's a bioidentical hormone.
Yeah.
Its properties are anti-inflammatory. So it's not like, giving a medication that's like, we think of any number of medications that just is like a symptom reducer. It actually fixes the problem. The problem is that the ovaries are no longer producing what they need. Yeah. If you're not ovulating, you're not producing the progesterone that helps you like, that is, ovulation is required for your corpus luteum to come out and start spraying out little bits of progesterone that then helps a period happen, like that, all that requires ovulation. And if ovulation is not happening, that progesterone isn't happening, which means you're probably not sleeping and your periods are heavy. We can fix that by giving you the hormone.
And ovulation's the best time of the month.
Oh yeah, women mostly feel well during
So
ovulation.
happy.
They got some get up and go. They feel like, yeah, they feel good. That's usually when their libido increases. Like that is a great time for the partner.
Oh,
if they're in a
our wives
heterosexual
can't-
business.
Our wives can't keep their hands off
I'm
us.
sure.
But
I
in
can
general.
tell. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's every day.
Yeah. And then during that week, oh my God.
But their lips get red. Like I can look at my wife and know if she's ovulating based on how red her lips are and soft her skin is. or the exact opposite. Like this is no
I
go
love that
zone.
he notices that too. Like I don't even know if I would never notice that. All right, so I gotta go chiropractic, devil's advocate,
Okay.
because my brain just is wired like this. Where I start thinking, all right, I'm hearing you. So the bioidentical stuff, I get it. Molecularly, they're parking in the same spot. You wouldn't be able to tell a difference. I've sat through a ton of these functional nutrition and hormone people that do this stuff. And their argument, it made a lot of sense to me. It was like, okay, so they're the same, but the problem is dosages. So the excess is the problem. They're the same exact thing, but if the body is saying, I want to decline estrogen, and what you're saying is we can just give you some more, what has to happen is when you put it in or on the body has to do something with it.
They have
now.
to detox it, and those detox pathways are important. And the majority
Yes.
of clinicians don't know much about detox pathways. And I am not a functional medicine specialist, but
Right.
this is an area where I have spent time to understand this a little bit better. But yeah, the detox pathways are important to
Because if you're not getting rid of it, now you have excess estrogen, which leads to the cancer. So, and again, from a metric standpoint, our argument chiropractic, and I always just bring in chiropractic because philosophically, like that chiropractic philosophy changed how I view everything. I run it through like different filters in my brain. And I would think of it like, well, what metric are we shooting for? Meaning, what's our goal? And it sounds like in this world is feeling good, right? So what objectively, you give a woman hormones and you would go, okay, how'd you do? I felt better. I slept better. I didn't have the hot flashes, whatever it is. Those are all subjective, feel-good health metrics.
yeah, but it usually means that those levels are high enough to where they're protecting other things.
Right. But that would be my question would be functionally over the long run, how are you functioning would be more so. So like
Yes.
cool that symptoms go away. And that's kind of how we think of it chiropractic. It's like, oh, we adjust somebody's neck and they had neck pain and that went away. That's a symptom that went away, but that's not what we're excited about. We're excited is the nerve now clear so that it's functioning better. And therefore the result was the symptom also went away as a side effect of proper function. In other words, that's what I'm hoping in this world. It's like, okay, are the symptoms changing a side effect of proper function? And those would be where the studies that these people show are increased rates of cancer and
But
breast.
there aren't. I mean, you have to be careful where you're looking at those studies as well, and who's doing those studies. The majority of studies, I mean, all but like if you look at the 26 studies, the major studies over the last, since the WHI, which, if we need to dive into that a little bit, but the majority of those showed decreased risk of incidence of all the things, breast cancer and all the things. The breast cancer, estrogen causing breast cancer, like the highest estrogen in a woman's life is during pregnancy. And like, how often do we diagnose a woman with breast cancer during pregnancy?
Right.
Like almost never. And so, yes, the detox pathways are important. And like I have a really wonderful collaborative partner, Dr. Christina Payne, who she has a integrative practice. She's phenomenal. And so she's kind of like my functional brain. I run a lot of things by her. And so we talk a lot about those things. But if you think about the majority of women in the WHI, the Women's Health Initiative that was done, that whole study was in the 80s and 90s. That was what they did because they were like, should we just be putting every woman on hormone therapy? Or do we need to keep like our FDA approved parameters? Do we need to be more careful? Because like observational studies said like women do better on hormones than
Right.
their counterparts. So they did this study and they looked at it and they had, it was like 160,000 women, $1 billion. And, you know, it was stopped prematurely because they said, oh, well, this causes breast cancer. Well, they had two arms of this study, right? They had an arm that was estrogen, and estrogen being CEE. It's like horse's pee, 10
Yeah.
different kinds, conjugated equine estrogen, right? We had that arm, which was still like estrogen. It just was like non-specific, really,
Right.
you know, 10 different types. And in that arm, there was that one, and then there was the placebo with that one. And then there was one that was the CEE plus a progestin. Progestin meaning not what we use typically now, not
Yeah.
micronized progesterone, but progestin, like what's in a birth control pill. Pravera is what they were using.
Yeah.
So we had these two arms. And the women who were who had been hysterectomized and took the estrogen only, they did better than their counterparts. They were diagnosed with
Yeah.
less
Less issues.
less breast cancer, and had lower all-cause mortality. When it was found, when they were diagnosed with breast cancer, they did well for the most part. In the other arm with the progestin and the estrogen, they looked at the placebo group and that group, and they found that 5 women on the combination therapy per 1,000 per year over 5 years were diagnosed with breast cancer. And in the other arm, it was 4 women. So it was a difference of 1 woman per year, over each, 1 year per 1,000 over each year. And so we think that if there was anything to that breast cancer piece, it was probably the Pravera. And so the majority of us are not out there prescribing Pravera for it. So, and if you look at who was enrolled in the study, it was women who like are way older than often we start. They had a whole host of issues already. They were already on blood pressure medicines. Chronic disease had already set in for many of these women. And they still did well. So the detox pathway discussion is important, but in the vast majority of these women that they were not thinking about any of that on,
Right.
and they were on all of these, other chronic medications. They'd already, it went up to like the 70s. Women were in their 70s. They were just starting these medications. It was started quite a bit later for many of these women with chronic diseases. Like they did pretty well. So if we're going to generalize, this is like major extrapolation, but I don't want to base the care that I give necessarily on the detox pathway of like the rare person who doesn't detox it well.
Right.
Now, I do think it's something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that needs to be understood. And when I have a patient who doesn't do well with it, like that's the first thing I'm going to call Christina and say like, oh, what do you make of this? Like, what do you think? And sometimes like women who don't do well, and I know we're talking about well from the perspective, like you said, of like,
just feeling better.
Yes.
Comfort.
And I understand that. But often when they don't do well, there's something like central nervous system dysfunction.
Yeah.
There's like something else going on that we need to look at. So the studies show that women do well on this medication. And yes, we do need to be looking at more. And yes, there needs to be more studies. But if we can comfortably say that you're going to likely have decreased all-cause mortality, decreased risk of a hip fracture, decreased risk of cardiovascular disease if you continue to have estrogen in your body, gosh, I'm all for it. Like I'm not going to say like the random person who can't detox it better. Like if we're talking about breast cancer does not seem to be like there are women who, yes, they do need to their detox pathways do need to be cleaned up. And if you have a clinician who knows how to do that, like that's really, really great, who can help you with some of those things and help you improve
Yeah.
like your liver function and
Because that's
stuff
what
like
I think
that.
in general, that's a great focus. Even from the standpoint of what we were mentioning earlier, that all the endocrine disruptors and xenoestrogens that are all over the body that need detox. And that's my worry is even epigenetically that we're exposed to so much that our bodies genetically are going to try to adapt to the exposure. And because there's new chemicals and crap all the time, that the body's saying, all right, well, we need to either create more estrogen receptors because the xenoestrogens are making the cells look like, hey, we need more receptors to bind. And then that might be also a part of the whole equation.
It just doesn't add up in the literature that way. So like that's where I'm like, we have to weigh the good, like the pros and the cons. And whenever we're dealing with it is still a medication, but like I think about all of the things that we wouldn't dream of saying, like, we're just not going to treat you for that because like, what is the, like when the outcomes clearly say that they're better, you know, for the vast majority, not for everyone. We cannot blanket statement because there are women who hormones are not appropriate for. But I think there is enough over the last 20 years since that study, since the WHI, year over year, study over study, that we can, the majority of women we can feel comfortable doing that with and not feel like we're going to increase their risk of breast cancer, increase their risk of other poor outcomes, because the studies just don't say that's there.
I always think about diabetes because I think we have so many people in our country that has it, and it's broken into like type 1 diabetes, which is just genetically there. There's nothing you can do.
Autoimmune.
There's no way around it. Yeah, and you just know like, oh, you have type 1, you're going to have to take insulin for the rest of your life. We're going to give you the best, closest version that we can of it, and then we have to try to keep your numbers. But then there's type 2, which is differentiated as basically you're not taking care of your body like it should, and your pancreas is wearing out.
Right.
And now
Carb excess.
Carbs, stress.
Like, not always, but yeah.
Soda, processed
all
sugar.
of the chemicals that have,
Yeah. But that is often just treated like, hey, here's some insulin too. Like, I know there's some places that they just treat type 1 and type 2 like the same thing. You just got it. There's nothing you can do about it. Take this insulin for the rest of your life. But if you look at it closely, type 1 and type 2, because they're caused by different things,
right.
in theory, should be treated
differently. One of them is
differently.
no insulin, and one of them is insulin resistance. One of them, the beta cells are not actually even producing anything.
Yes, that's what I get curious about, like when it comes to estrogen as well. Like, is it maybe that there's a type 1 like menopausal issue and a type 2?
You know, we have type 1.5 diabetes, right? That's just a later version of type 1 diabetes. I actually have a patient who recently was diagnosed with what I think is going to be type 1.5, and that's just later onset of type 1.
Yeah, there's I know a 50-year-old who got diagnosed with it.
Yep.
All right.
You were thinking type 1.
Well, I was thinking type
or-
yes,
and
like
type
in the
2
same way that
estrogen.
the pancreas gets tired in type 2, maybe the ovaries get tired.
They don't
in
get
a
tired.
version of that.
They are predisposed to quit. They're predisposed to quit. They are not. There is no like getting tired and let's like
It's just time
help
to
them.
shut
And
down.
It's just they literally run out of eggs. We are born with the amount of eggs at birth that the most we will have then, and we will never gain any more. So it's not like we can just be like, let's just improve your egg, like the amount of eggs you have. Like, no, sorry, you had the amount that you were going to have, and that's it. And it decreases every time a woman ovulates. She doesn't just ovulate that one egg. She ovulates one egg, and through apoptosis and all the other things, she loses hundreds, if not thousands of eggs each month. So by the time you get to that final menstrual period, there's probably 300 or 400 left. And I, every once in a while, will find a woman when I go to check her hormones and make sure that she's, that is one thing that I do that not everybody does, especially not a conventional clinician in like a hospital practice, but I do monitor like how well are they absorbing it? Like, what does this look like? But every once in a while, like I'll watch something, or I'll check a woman who comes to me for the first time, and I will check her estrogen and to see how much she's got, kind of just in that one moment, because that's all we're testing. And she will have a number that I'm not expecting. And that's because there are a couple of eggs in there. And if the brain sends that FSH, that hormone, and there's enough of it, she might get a little bit of a little, whoo, and she can feel it, man.
Secret eggs.
Oh, yeah. Little
Hiding eggs.
Like,
Those
Like
little
an Easter
hiders.
bunny.
Try-
Easter bunny kind of hit a.
yeah. So we're going to try to
true.
like ovulate at 55, and there's been no period for 3 years. But like, man, this month we just happened to catch that it's trying. And she's like, actually felt really good when I got those labs done. Like, it feels pretty good to when you get a little bit of estrogen. Estrogen, it's not just, I mean, and that's where that discomfort question comes into play. Like, for me, if feeling good means living the life that you want, having the energy to do the stuff that you want that keeps you healthy and active, if it means it gets you to the gym because you feel more motivated, well, then hell, let's do it. Like, let's do those things that will help a woman feel healthy, live the life she wants, give the life to the other people that she's always caring for. You know, it's a win-win situation. So I don't really care if it's just for discomfort. I don't think there's anyone who can say like, oh, are you uncomfortable enough? Like, then we'll treat you. Like, we don't do that. Like, that's just not. And if it's safe for the vast majority of people, you know, why wouldn't we do it? Like, if it helps you live the life you want, by all means, let's do it. And if it protects you from getting a hip fracture, from ending up in the hospital with chronic UTIs, when we talk about like vaginal hormones and things like that, like, absolutely. Like, let's do it.
And I want to talk about your props too that you brought with you.
Okay, so what are we talking about?
I don't know what props you brought, but you warned us that you have some props.
Oh, why? I thought it would be. Those are soft.
They are soft. No. Well, okay. So when I asked
What
you,
are they? Just
okay, yeah.
He's never seen those
for anyone
before.
listening. What am I looking at?
He's never seen that. Those aliens.
These sit in my office, and I think they're really important. And the reason I brought them was because I wanted to talk a little bit about pleasure. Like, women who come in and talk to me, you brought it up first thing, like talking about sex. That's the first thing you wanted to talk about. Like, women come in to me not knowing their anatomy, and they'll come in and they'll say, like, my libido is so low. And I'll say, okay, like, well, let's talk about that, because libido is multifaceted. And a lot of time we'll talk about like sexual pain. Like, are you experiencing pain when you have sex? Because of course your brain, you're wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. So if you're having pain with sex, you're absolutely not going to want to do it. Like, that's, of course,
Definitely
right?
not.
So then I usually pull out my little models and I say, okay, like, let's talk about your anatomy. Let's talk about like where your pleasure sensors are, because like this is important. And I can't tell you how many women come in and feel like they're abnormal because they don't have an orgasm through penetration. Like, they think that that's where they're supposed to have it. And so I explain, like, well, let me show you where your anatomy is. Like, let me show you where
the
like,
nerve
your pleasure.
endings at.
Yeah. I mean, women have, they have 10,000. Is this really?
I'm like a 10-year-old.
Just
I mean,
giggling,
it's just.
I mean, they're pretty accurate.
They're just great.
But women have 10,000 nerve endings. There was a study in 2023, I think, that confirmed there's about 10,000 nerve endings in the clitoris. Mm-hmm. So that is your pleasure sensor. Men have about 4,000 in their penis. So if you think about like the discrepancy there, like your clitoris is where it's at. If you're going to have an orgasm, for the majority of women, it's going to happen on the external parts on the vulva. And so then in the vagina, though, you do have some. They're mostly at the opening of the lower third of the vagina. So it's just not like, I mean,
Why do girls get so many and guys get 4,000? It's like women have
feels
10,000
fair.
plus more in other
probably
areas.
because it takes more work, and because there's so many women, like there's so many men who don't either don't care or don't realize what their
What's
partner
happening
likes.
down there?
And that's one thing that I ask a lot is like, does your partner do the right thing? Do they know what you like? Have you discussed this with them? And sometimes like they don't have that relationship where they can. You know, there are a lot of people who wrap their value up in like in sex and you know, like that is, and so there are a lot of women who have a hard time discussing that with their partners. Like, hey, actually, like what you're doing is not what I
nowhere
like.
near.
It's like, you've been doing this
You're
every
not
week
in the
for the
right-
last 10 years, and I
Yeah.
hate it.
Yeah. I had a sweet lady who's like 50, I don't know, in her mid 50s. And I like pulled out my model and I was like, well, like, where do you think that this is supposed to happen? And she's like, I don't know, like right in here. And yeah, we do. Like some women do have a G spot. Am I okay to be saying all this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So some like women do have that, but that's just like where the nerve endings from the clitoris like land in the vagina.
Yeah.
So some women do have pleasure, you know, like they do find that pleasurable to have penetrative sex, but it usually also they want.
What's the percentage of women? Is there like a study on that? Like
Yeah, there's
how
like
many
a study, and I think it was about 70% that can have like a vaginal orgasm, but I think that's way overestimated.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that number is accurate,
Right.
and there's a lot of discussion. Rachel Rubens talked about it quite a bit, and I really don't think that 70% of women are having orgasms through penetrative
Right.
sex. I really don't.
Right.
So, I mean, you could take a poll because
We'll
And
put
there's
that
probably
on
not enough
Instagram.
there's not enough guys that would last long enough probably
Well,
either to
and
even do it that way.
if you think about that, women orgasm in about 13 to 15 minutes on average, where men are like 5 to 7. So that's another place where there's a little bit of a discrepancy, especially in the bedroom among partners who aren't communicating. And men, like sometimes men don't realize like women are literally meant to come first. So that's just a big, like that's an actual thing. So if you're not prioritizing your partner's pleasure, like that's, that can be a real issue in a relationship. When we think about Basson's model of pleasure, which is I think it's a he. Gosh, now that I'm saying that, I'm like, wait a second.
A guy would
the
come up with this. I don't know.
Well, then I was like, oh gosh, I think it's a man. But when this model also talks about like the importance of mindfulness and that like arousal and desire, like they're not necessarily linear either. And like women sometimes need its mindset, and it's like, how is your relationship with your partner? Like, is your partner helping you with the things that you need help with? Are you like,
They
what
cut the grass
mental
that day.
load? Yeah, what mental load are you carrying? Because women are not most
Tom's
women,
out there cutting his own grass every week,
Folding the laundry.
just helping out.
But like, you know, for the most part, women are more responsive and men are spontaneous. Like out of thin air, they can be in the mood and ready to go. But
Sometimes you don't even know what's happening.
sometimes you don't
You
even
go, whoa.
know. Yes. That is not how women work. That's not how women work. Most of the time we need more. There has to be some sort of stimulus. The things have to be right. You need a deep connection with your partner. Like, are you tired? How are you getting enough sleep? How do you feel about your body? Like that's a
Body image.
big one. And so it's multifaceted. It's not just, do you have enough testosterone? And I do replace testosterone. I think that there's a time and place for that. And that women can feel amazing with that, but that's not the only thing.
Is testosterone the thing that gets them going? Like
Women?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I thought you just said.
No, they're like a lot of the time women will come to me and they'll say like, hey, like my libido's low. Do you replace testosterone? And absolutely, like in the right situation or with the right
okay.
patient, I do. I think that I don't want to say replacing, but you know, supplementing with testosterone can be a game changer. It can be like
Right.
the cherry on top, but it's not the only thing. Like there's no hard level that's like, oh, your testosterone is this level. You should feel good and you should feel like having sex. It can be helpful.
Because
but
I was
it's
wondering, what's the disorder where it's high testosterone in a woman? Is it PCOS?
OS.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not necessarily high testosterone. It's high sensitivity to two androgens.
Okay.
So like I mean, yes, like it's obvious sometimes when we look at like DHEA or we look at PCOS or testosterone and we diagnose with PCOS, but sometimes it's just high sensitivity.
Are they more willing, like have a higher libido than want to hook up? Like those, like PCOS?
I think that that's probably variable because
Okay.
also a lot of those women have issues with body image and other things that are
Right.
going to. But like, yeah, is their libido elevated? Sometimes for some women that's possible, but I think it's more the sensitivity in that. And I wouldn't say that that's like the experience that I have with these women. All of my patients get a really, really big intake of, oh my gosh, I feel so bad when I give it to them. Like, just fill this all out because it's really long. And I go through all of the symptoms. And I would not say that on average, my patients with PCOS have high libido.
Gotcha.
No, because there's so much else going on. There's usually a lot of fatigue and there's usually a lot of like central nervous system dysfunction and emotional, like there's a big emotional piece. They've been suffering with it for years and been undiagnosed and they don't feel like sex is not going to be the thing that's on their mind for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So are you finding though, so when you're mentioning that women don't understand their anatomy, is that like, I'm thinking back as a boy, like when my wiener started to get hard, I was like, oh, this, and you start touching it and you go, this is nice.
Yeah.
You're saying women, wouldn't they just start touching parts and go, this is the part that feels good? Like this is where the nerve endings are? Or you're saying a lot of women aren't doing that?
Yeah. Well, if you think about too where we live and the shame that comes, like that is discussed or that is perpetuated in some of our, like in the South or in really, really religious homes where like sex is super, super taboo.
Right.
Like that is, I mean, when you think about self-touch and like safe, doing that, like that's an absolute no-go.
No.
And
No
so,
zone.
yeah. And everybody comes from a different place, I think, as far as what their comfort level is. I have a lot of patients who have like, when I've been giving them, when I prescribe them vaginal hormones, they're like, I'm just not comfortable touching there. So there's people who don't know. And whenever when I was at Park Ridge, when I was at Prisma, I always had a mirror so that I could show them like, hey, this is where your clitoris is. These are your labial folds. This is your vulva. Because so many of they've never looked. They don't know.
Right.
So there is no like.
It's like a disassociation almost. That's happened.
And I think part of it has to do with, I don't want to just say where we live here because I think that it's everywhere. It depends on what you grew up with and what your comfort level was like with discussion about your body. And like, I know so many people who never had like the talk with their parents. Like that just didn't ever happen. And, they were expected, but it was like sex is an absolute no, like off limits before marriage. And then they go get married and then they go to their wedding night and they're like, I have had no idea what I was doing. It hurt. And then that just sets them up for this relationship of like, I just don't like it. Like, and there are people who don't like, for me, I always tell them like, if your low libido is not a problem for you and it's not a problem for your partner, it's not a problem for me. Everybody's a little bit different. Like that's okay. But if it seems to be creating tension for you guys, like if it's something that you would like to have more of, like we need to work on it. But some people that's just the way they grew up. They were thrown into a marriage that now they're expected to like be the sex goddess. And they're like, I'm just not, like, it's just not something. And part of it's because we have to like, and I'm not a sex therapist. I'm not a sex certified, but those are discussions that we have. And we sometimes talk about, like what would feel safe for you? What feels comfortable for you? Like, does me just showing your anatomy so that you know it better, like, does that help? Let me give you some things to try with your partner. Do we need to like incorporate some other tool? So, there's a lot to that. Like when you think about the media and everything, it also portrays women differently, like in a way that's not practical.
Yeah.
When you see a woman, when you see him having sex, it's like 13 seconds, like it's done and like the woman is like panting and had the best time of her life. Like that's not like happening.
Not how it works.
So I think there's a lot of expectation. So a lot of women come to me feeling like failures or like there's something wrong with them, and really they just need to be taught about like their anatomy and their sexual response. And also about like, what is your what are you and your partner, like, what are your goals?
Right.
You know, is sex for you guys a way to feel close and to cultivate your relationship? Whatever relationship situation it is, whether it's, you know, like there's a variety of different relationships. Sometimes like I have women who are partnered and like they're just both like low libido and like they're just fine. Like that's the way their partnership is, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're partnered in a heterosexual relationship, like, and that is important to one partner and you want to cultivate that, like sometimes you just need to know the tools.
Right. Is that way? Like, I feel like there's a big uprising in the fantasy book world that women are reading these books to kind of get their mental state there.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is a lot there are a lot of books and there's a lot on Netflix nowadays. Like, is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Is it cultivating realistic expectations? That's a good point. I can't really speak to that, but I do know that from experience that watching things or like reading a book does like help the mood,
Yeah.
you know? So if that's what it
visualizations
does,
going.
yeah, that book is probably safer than for the majority of people than something that you're visualizing because it comes from your own brain. I don't know if that's true, but that just makes sense to me.
The internet, see that that was one of my questions was.
Well, then you're
guys,
seeing it in a way that feels probably safe to you and not like in the way that it's, because I've seen some stuff on Netflix and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is just
Right.
sleazy. But like it just, you know, there's some stuff on there that probably would perpetuate some like unsafe, like it would not feel safe. But like if you read it, maybe, I don't know.
Because I remember Jordan Peterson saying men watch porn and women read porn. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I've never thought of it like that, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
But then I've always heard arguments from women saying it's different, it's not the same. If I'm reading that it's happening, it's different than me watching it happening. And I don't know, it might be true, I don't know. I haven't been able to wrap my head around it.
I don't know. Those are things, that is not my specialty. But, you know, I do think that some women may experience some desire from or some arousal from reading something, and if that like helps them to like be like, oh, that's what that is, that's what I'm supposed to feel,
Right.
then that might be helpful.
I've never really thought about the shame around your own body and body parts. Because I just again, I go back to like when I was a kid, you just start figuring things out. And even when you're washing yourself, like, wouldn't that be like, do you think women just aren't even like, that's also an area where it's like, just get in, get out. And
Well, I mean, I think about how many times like people say like, don't touch.
right. And it's just ingrained in them.
Yeah. So I think it's really common. I think it's really common for women to just not understand their own anatomy and their own sexual response and to not feel a connection with that.
Is that like a USA thing? Because I almost feel like other countries and cultures, it's not like you go to Europe, it's a free for all. I feel like in Canada, the women up there are just wild.
I don't know. I think it's probably particular to
Southern
well, and I don't want to
maybe?
say like even just different cultures. I mean, I think the South is probably a pretty good like I think that's a good way to think about it. But I mean, I grew up in Utah, and so I grew up.
Mormon.
Yeah, I grew. I mean, I am still am Mormon.
Oh, you are Mormon?
Yeah.
Really?
So yeah, but I'm I'm different. Like I was, you're probably like you
Different
are.
Mormon.
But no, I you know, I think about the way I grew up, and the way I grew up is in a very open, like my family, yes, you know, Mormon, but very comfortable with talking about sex, comfortable with our bodies. My family was very good at, like, we probably got our talk a little too early, but like, it's different when I think about like my friends that grew up in that culture. You know, like it's just, we're not necessarily talking about our bodies in the same way where like in the Northeast where it's like, hey, are you in like, what do you know, like there's just a lot
Yeah.
more, self-expression and stuff like that, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the U.S. I'm not, like I said, I haven't studied all of this stuff. I just know what I see in practice and what I've learned from a general perspective, or in a general perspective through school and through the multitude of people I have in my back pocket that I talk about these things with every day from around the country, who are also clinicians. And I do think that probably here, like in the South, and I mean, our sex education's not amazing either.
Almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I had parents who talked to me about it too. Like,
Yeah.
but it was like a sit down. Here's the book. We're gonna go through like
Right.
every single step of the way, which I really appreciate. I think
Yeah.
it's smart. We talk about that with our kids too.
yeah.
but
It also I think it sets up kind of like from a safety perspective. Like, that, like, from a young age that like, there's nothing wrong with you or nothing wrong with these parts of your body, but that they're also special and to be kept special. Like
Right.
they're like, you get to set your own boundaries and you get like, but your family, like you lay out, like when something crosses a line or when something, like you learn how to say no. It talks about, you talk about consent, and you talk about like, if kids are better able to discuss like, hey, like something inappropriate happened, something inappropriate was said, or like
Right.
if they don't feel shame around their body parts,
Yeah.
So I
or
think
even
it's
just
important.
understanding,
Or
like
understanding
you can't get AIDS from a toilet seat.
I thought I had
Yes.
AIDS for the longest time as a kid. I was
Oh my
scared
gosh,
to death.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like or there was things. I remember hearing about a girl who in high school who was using a frozen hot dog, and then it thawed out and like broke off inside her, and she had to go to the hospital.
I have worked in the ED. I did work in the ED periodically and saw some strange things, but never a frozen hot dog in there.
Yeah, that was a surprising one.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Now, in the Mormon world, soaking is a thing. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Really?
No. I mean, I haven't lived in Utah for over 20 years. So like,
So you
that's
never even
not-
heard of it?
No.
Oh, goodness. I'll try to explain
I
it.
can't even I don't even know where you're going to go
So,
with this conversation.
Because you can't have the thing is, obviously don't have sex before you're married. What they're doing is you lay on a bed and you insert and soak your wiener inside of the anatomy that you brought today, and no movement, but you have friends that jiggle the bed.
No, this sounds
I'm not
ridiculous.
kidding.
Jump on the bed.
It is a real thing.
I'm going to have to.
You got to look into this because I was surprised that was a thing. They call it soaking.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
I've heard about it
I
a
mean,
lot too.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Our
can't- I don't
algorithms
know.
are different.
Yeah, that is not anything I know about or know anyone who's doing. So, yeah. But I
What
mean,
about-
it is interesting though. Like when you box off a whole like.
They like figure. I
that
thought
there's
they
a way
figured out
around that, like
yes,
that, like
yes.
oh, and I this is okay, like this is okay, but this is not.
right.
Yeah, that is kind of strange.
It's like a
I don't know
loophole.
anything
It's like an
about
IRS
that.
loophole.
And, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here's a little loophole somebody figured out.
So I was asking earlier. I was like, all right, I want to know about the whole like 50 Shades of Grey world that's exploded in the last I don't know how many years, or at least to me. And I don't know if it's exploded or if it just feels like it has to me as I'm getting older and I
As he
am
built
more
a room,
aware of
a
it.
room in his house for it. Yeah.
Okay.
What percentage of women would you guess want to be like spanked, choked, spitting in their mouth? Is that a category that's in there?
I mean, I'm not exposed to a lot of women who want
It's not a question on the
this.
questionnaire.
No. It's not. And I think that there are women who like have, I mean, just like men have fantasies, women have fantasies. And so like, as long as you're in a partnership where that feels safe and that you have like a stopping point, like, and it's been communicated and you have like safe words, like, I guess if that's something that you're into, then, but safety is like big, really important, and it can really ruin a relationship if someone steps outside of it. So that's, that's with anything. And I think that, if someone's engaging in that and there is respect in that relationship and it's been communicated and everything, and that is where this couple is at, then, I mean, I guess that should be something that they are able to do. But I think that there has to be major limits and safety, like, safe checkpoints if that stuff is happening. Because for real,
Just checking in on you. How's that?
Like, because that's, I
know.
mean, it's just,
sure.
it is.
Yeah.
But I don't want anyone, I would never want someone to come into my office and not feel like that wasn't something that they could discuss. Like, hey, I actually enjoy like S&M or something like that. Like, people need to come into my office and know it's safe and that they can discuss these things with me. And if we need to find alternatives or if we need to figure something else out because it doesn't feel safe, but that's happening with their partner, like, I want them to know, like, this is the things that they talk to me about. There's zero judgment when they come into my office. It's completely confidential. And I want patients to know that that's like the environment that has been created. Like, I always have a box of tissues because most everyone cries. Like, there's a lot of things that women are telling me, and I feel so privileged to be able to hear, like, to have that their trust to tell me these things. And so if that's something they're engaging in and it feels safe, like, I want them to feel like they can tell me that.
Yeah.
And I want them to also know that if they're engaging in it and it doesn't feel safe to them, that we can figure a way out of that as well.
I always thought it was fringe, but
I don't.
then 50 Shades of Grey came out, and it was
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of copies sold.
Yes.
Then TV shows that were breaking
That's that fantasy too. Like, maybe they're not engaging in it, but the fantasy of it is, too. So I don't know. I don't see it. I don't want to say it's like something that's discussed frequently in my office, but I mean, women have fantasy just like men do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say so. And then Randy alluded as he opened the show that you guys were talking girth and length when I walked in before the show.
goodness.
You tell the audience, like, where do you recommend for that?
Well, I can't recommend. I mean,
Or, I
you're
mean,
born
what's
with
your
the anatomy you've got. Like, but I mean, I think from a it would make more sense knowing where the nerve endings are
Target
in the
that.
front of the lower third of the vagina, right? Like, if we're looking in here, and
Yeah,
we've
let's
got,
turn
like,
it that way
this,
so they can see.
Yeah, so like, if we're looking, the lower third is where, where those nerve endings are going to be. I would think that, like, length doesn't matter that much. It's
Right.
If anything, girth
you're
probably
talking
would.
down in
But
there.
also, I don't know how much women actually care about
Well,
that.
there's
to
probably
be
a
honest, like,
length.
men really,
I
men
would
care.
imagine, like, look, there's
Well,
they
like
have the little
like an
things,
inch.
the little ribs in there.
There's not much space. Like, when you
Inch
think about
and a
the
half?
lower third is probably, a couple inches or so. But I really don't think, honestly, I just don't think women care about.
Length as much as they
Well,
say.
sex for a woman, so often there's so much more than just like the anatomy of their partner.
Right.
Like, that's why when we're talking about Bassen's model and we're talking about mindfulness and, like, how connected are you feeling to your partner? That matters a lot more.
Right.
Like, is your partner, like, doing the things that make you want to have sex with him or her? Like,
Right.
that's much more important, I think, than either of those other two things. But from a physical standpoint, it makes more sense if you've got more nerve endings that it would be the girth rather than, like, the length. Because
Yeah.
after a third of that, like, I
And the
think
motion
it's
in the
just-
ocean, as they say.
I mean, I guess.
So, all right. So, can you show, maybe for the listener or
Okay.
the watchers, show the clitoris,
Okay, yes.
and then, or I guess show the labia, show all the different
Okay.
parts so that they
well,
can
we've
see
got
it.
the clitoris here. That's obviously where our pleasure center is. And then this is out here. This is the labia majora, right? This is just fat tissue covered by skin. And there are nerve endings throughout. So, like, really in general, like, the vulva is pleasurable for most women. But then you've got the labia minora here. And this is typically going to be more like mucosal surfaces. It's just completely different than, like, the outer. You've got your labial folds in between here. Okay. you've got your urethra here. This is a big deal. Like a lot of women don't realize that where their urethra is. It's really close to the vagina. It's not in the vagina.
Yeah.
Vagina is the hole here, and the canal, like the canal is the vagina. Moving into here, this is the vestibule, and a lot of women get pain at the vestibule. So this area that's like right here, kind of, that's the vestibule, and that's actually like mediated a lot by testosterone. Like it's bladder tissue, so it's like inside out bladder tissue.
Oh.
So there's that area. Then there's the introitus, which is kind of this vaginal opening into the vagina.
Okay.
There, I don't know if and then the perineum too. That's an important place to know, especially like if you're going to talk to your clinician about like friction pain during sex. So that's important.
That's
I think we
the
covered
taint
everything.
What about
in
the
layman's terms.
What about the
Yes.
G spot?
Correct.
Where's the
That's
G spot?
inside. That's like the underside of the clitoris. So if the clitoris is here, and the third, you think about the lower third being where the nerve endings are in the vagina. That's just basically that. But it would just be on this upper side here, like where the clitoris is innervated, and the underside of it is just might hit that spot in the vagina. But it's just thought to be like from nerve endings from the clitoris.
And
So
and then squirting.
Oh gosh.
Is that a thing? So we can talk about? Well, it would come out of the
talking
urethra, I think, right? Like I don't think people would
It's just-
realize where the urethra is versus the
Yeah.
clitoris versus the.
and it's just like a
vagina.
pre-lubricate, like a lubrication type of a thing. But yeah, like I mean, if some, yeah,
You guys
Yeah.
talking
I
about
thought
that?
that
You're
was
not
normal.
talking
I
about
mean,
that much. in
Not
your-
much,
No,
no.
that's-
But I mean, for some women, that is a thing, and yeah, that's just typically from the urethra.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is interesting, like how many women don't know what their anatomy is and like what hurts. Like
Yeah,
if something
right.
like if I have a patient call me and say like something's burning, we have to figure out like, is it burning in your urethra or is it burning in your vagina? And is
Right.
it burning in your vagina just because, or is it hurting when the pee hits your vagina?
Sure.
Like that's another thing. Cause like women will call me and say, hey, like, I think I have a UTI, but it's not a UTI at all. It's somewhere, it's pain
Interesting.
in their vagina.
Right.
So, and that could be, especially for a woman who's like menopausal or, woman who has low, like when we really didn't talk much about hormones themselves, but like you have so many receptor sites in the vagina and in the vulva that like when you take a systemic hormone, it's probably not going to get, like it might help with some lubrication in the vagina, but there is also a really like easy way to apply it directly to the spot. Through the source with a vaginal hormone. And so like if women come to me and they say like, yeah, things like hurt and they're dry and I'm not lubricating as well, a lot of the time we can give a vaginal hormone.
Vaginal. Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you delivering
Interesting.
hormone? Vaginally, topically.
Yeah, so
there
vaginally would be topically. Like so when I do hormone therapy, there's systemic and then there's local options.
Okay.
And the systemic options are like there's oral estradiol. Estradiol is like the hormone that is premenopausal, your premenopausal estrogen. And that it comes in oral, transdermal, several different ways of doing transdermal estrogen. And then you can do injectables. There are like different type. I mean, you can insert it in a pellet. I don't do any pellets, but you can do that. I mean, there's lots of ways.
Okay.
And then there's vaginal hormones that are local, and there's estrogen in the form of creams. There's, I didn't say troches. I guess that are troches, not troches. I don't prescribe them, and I say them wrong sometimes, but troches, they go underneath the tongue. And I think you can do an estrogen troche, but I have not done that ever. But then vaginal hormones would be like there's a ring. There is a systemic ring too, but nobody really uses that very often. But there's a vaginal ring that can give you local estrogen. There's creams. There's suppositories. There's tablets. Some of them are straight up estrogen. We can compound things. I do compound whether it's like oral types or local vaginal types. depending on what the base is that they need it in. But you can compound things and, make them, they could be made out of DHEA, which is a precursor hormone that can become testosterone or estrogen. Because like I said, there's, a lot of testosterone little receptors in the vagina too. So so lots of options for that for women who are like perimenopausal or menopausal and are feeling like they have like dryness or, decreased lubrication or pain. I mean, like the genitourinary syndrome of menopause is real. It is a decrease in that local vaginal estrogen that causes dryness and irritation. UTIs, increased risk of UTI. They did a study in the last, year. They've rewritten the guidelines that say, like, if we put every woman on a vaginal estrogen, we'd reduce UTIs by 50% postmenopausally.
Really?
So, this is it's a game changer. So lots of when you think about women in their nursing homes with UTIs, vaginal estrogen should just be a standard of care because you can. It's so easy. It's just it can decrease a lot of that that risk of.
Would that be instead of using lubrication?
No. This is to help get the estrogen back into the tissues. Now, a lot of women don't need lubrication after you increase the blood flow to the tissues. When once you do that, that can be very helpful, and women can feel a lot better and not need it. Even from a systemic standpoint, sometimes the need for lubrication decreases, but I wouldn't necessarily say you're going to use that and you'll never need lubrication again. You might, but some women don't.
Yeah.
So
what do you recommend to women, say they want to go through perimenopause and menopause well, and they're young, and if you could just drop the rest, the next 20 years, what would you recommend they start doing now?
The obvious things that everyone says you should be doing. You need to make sure that you're prioritizing sleep, that you are getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, that you're setting yourself up to get that good sleep. You need to eat a diet that's rich in protein and fiber. Oh my gosh, fiber is the thing that's hardest for my patients. I can tell them they need to eat a whole bunch of protein to lose weight, but fiber is the thing that keeps your gut healthy. So fiber is honestly my hardest thing. It also helps to bring down your triglycerides. That's what you need to do is focus on fiber. And fiber is not starch. So a lot of people are well, where do I get fiber?
Yeah, they start eating a bunch of bread.
Yeah, they start eating and it's not. It's the starches that have a decent amount of fiber in them are not bread. I mean, it's we're talking lentils and things like that if we want beans. But then really green leafy vegetables, eating your veggies with your fiber, are the biggest place. It also will help to control your blood sugar quite a bit. So then, diet just needs to be on point. Drinking plenty of water. That's another thing that people forget about is you should be walking around with your Stanley and or your Yeti cup or your whatever you've got.
Yeah, what is this brand?
This is an Awala. Oh. Have you not seen an Awala?
I don't know that brand.
This sucker's huge. Yeah, it has a little straw. I like them, but anyways, you just need something that that prompts you to remember. You need water.
Yeah,
we are made up primarily of water. You have to replace that, and we live in a really hot climate. So, and then exercise. You need both types of exercise. It's important to get cardiovascular exercise in. It does help keep you lean. It does help your heart. And then you also need the strength training. Strength training, if you build muscle, your muscle is your best glucose disposal system. That is what helps you rid or take up the sugar as you need to. So you've got to be building muscle. And women who are over the age of 40, if you're not building it, you're losing it. So working on hypertrophy training, strength is important, but getting set up with somebody who can help you figure out how many reps do I need and how do I put this together, joining a gym, following somebody on YouTube. There are tons of free resources out there, but you need somebody who can help you figure out how to build muscle, not just do rep after rep, because that if you're doing that, you're not actually building up muscle. And then alcohol. That's honestly my biggest discussion, like where I have the hardest time with patients.
Drink a lot more of it.
Yeah, no.
Most people
I
aren't
mean,
drinking enough.
honestly, women's
Probably a lot they drink.
bodies, yeah,
Right.
and especially because they're dissatisfied with something. Like, I mean, people drink a lot of the time. I'm not saying that everyone does. People celebrate with alcohol. People, alcohol plays an important role in get-togethers and things like that, but also people rely on it to help them sleep, or because their relationship has its own set of issues or whatever. And alcohol will never replace fixing the thing that's causing the issue.
Yeah.
And so I talk about that a lot with patients, and I always call it like, you need to reassess your relationship with alcohol, and whatever that means, like any decrease is good. And so that's a big one. Women are not meant to have a drink a night. Like, our bodies cannot physically do that. And in fact, like, it messes with your GABA receptors. So you're not going to get typically better sleep with alcohol. So, that's a big one.
I think that one's not talked about very much
It's
either.
not. And there's a huge push. One of my favorite people in the podcast Manosphere area is Kelly Casperson, Dr. Kelly Casperson. And she has kind of like, she's been talking a lot about it. She actually stopped drinking. And I just think that, like, it makes people feel uncomfortable when they feel like, gosh, is this something I should be changing? But there really is a push to, like, redefine, like, what it means to say, like, let's go grab a drink. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't have to be an alcoholic beverage. Like, you can still be fun. I tell people all the time, like, I'm still fun even though I don't drink. Like, you can still be fun.
Yeah.
And I used to drink, and I feel like I'm still that same person. Like, my last drink was in 2011, and I'm probably not the most fun person, but, like, I'm still fun. Like, and so I think, just looking at that, what impact that could have in your life. I mean, it might mean weight loss. It might mean, like, a whole bunch of things. But also, like, I don't judge people for drinking. Drinking is a big part of our celebrations, of our lifestyle. And it's going to mean something different to everybody. So, like, whatever that means to you, try to go a little less, like, than that. And so, like, I think that's important. And then I think stress reduction, I think I didn't do that one. Stress reduction is really important. Figuring out how you can reduce stress. If you're an extremely stressed person all the time, we talk about, like, adrenal support and all of these things. Like, no, set some freaking boundaries.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
Like, yeah, we can give some supplements. We can talk about L-theanine. We can talk about several of these little things that you can add in. And sure, they might help you feel a little bit better, but really you have to correct the issue. If you are being required to do something that you cannot do, you have to say no. You have to figure that out. And so, and that's kind of like a place that I am at in my life right now, is like, what can I say no to? Like, I have to do that. So set boundaries. Some people just put themselves repeatedly in situations where they have to keep saying yes. Like, and it's okay to say no, and it's okay to protect yourself from especially your mental health. Prioritizing your mental health is really important. And so that's a part of that stress, and sleep. And then the last thing that I usually like to focus on is relationships. Like, nurture the relationships that matter to you. Prioritize them. You have to decide what relationships feel healthy, and because those are the relationships that will continue for years to come. Those are what will take up the most time. And that is also going to be an important part of moving through perimenopause, is like figuring out who your people are so that you have contact with other, like, especially women, or you have a safe, like, partner or whatever, where, like, you can be like, hey, like, something's wrong. I don't feel like myself. Like, nurture those relationships so that when you can offer other people in your sphere, and they can offer you, like, support through this transition, because it really is a transition of recalibration. Like, that is what your body is doing, and you're going to need support.
Yeah.
Great
Have you
list.
seen the
That's
Have you
great.
seen the saliva testing they're doing with hormones? I think
Yes.
that's the best out of all of them. Don't you?
No.
Well, because here's what it was pitched to me, and I was like, oh, that's logical. If they do blood or urine, it's a spot shot of that day, where if the person's still cycling, they're different throughout the whole month. So the saliva testing is like 11 draws over the course of the cycle. So you would see this like chart and graph of their hormones. And I was like, why don't they do that more often? You're not into it.
No, I'm really not. There's nothing like evidence based about it, and it's not
You
anything.
love evidence.
I do like evidence. I also think though that the majority of what I do is I treat clinically. Like I don't care. Like I mean, you talked about discomfort, and like that is important for me. And we can very easily try something and see how it works, and find like. When you test a lab, and you're right, like even that 11 days, like it's not great. Like none of that is really going to matter in the next month. Like, yes, you could keep going over a series of months. It's
Right.
the same. Like I do check a serum. I do spot check a serum. Women are often interested, but like none of those labs really make a difference. Now, once you're like everything's shut down, we check a lab. Like, yeah, it does mean something. It does. Because you're no longer making it, and there's not this like these confounding factors of like your over ovarian production. But no, I'm not into the saliva
need you into it.
testing. No, I'm really not. It's not my thing. I'm going to treat people clinically. And there is a Dutch test. I have some people who do Dutch tests.
Another great one.
I
You're not
don't
into
really
it.
do much of it, but that's not because like it's not I just don't feel like in the majority of situations it's necessary. But I do think that it can be helpful for some people. We usually can figure this stuff out without a bunch of expensive tests. And so that is kind of where I lie, unless somebody shows me something different. Like, you know, and I have some amazing experience with these other testing formats.
Yeah.
The only test that I do saliva testing for is a cortisol. So I don't typically, but I know a lot of like the compounding places do that. It's just not my bag. It's not the way that I practice. It's not like, there's nothing that says it is helpful or necessary. And I don't always use I don't use compounds that often either. So it's just not my business model.
My last thing was just kind of tell the audience what would day one look like. Like, say listeners are like, all right, I need Jessica's help. What's day one visit look like? What's it look like ongoing working with you?
Yes. So typically you set up a consult, and we're like changing all of this because we are moving to a new
701 Whaley.
Yes, we're moving to 701 Whaley. We have a beautiful new office. I'm so excited for it on September 1st. And we're kind of changing the way things are going to be working. I am moving to more of a concierge model.
Nice.
And I'm really excited about that because what I want is continuity. I want to always know when the next appointment is. I want to always, I want to be more outcome based. And I want all patients to be doing things like my body composition machine. And I want them to have the availability of other programs within their program. So we're working on that. I typically will do a consultation, and this new model for the consultation, it'll last about 75 minutes, and we will have already had labs drawn. So at that point, it's kind of like, this is what I think we can accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months. I have a very long intake process, so patients can, tell me all the things in there so that when they come, we can already kind of get started. In the prior way that I did it was like, okay, go get labs done and then we'll start. And most people, by the time they come see me, they're like, I just want to start.
Yeah.
So changing that. And then depending on what they need, I mean, not everybody is the same. So depending on what they need and what their goals are, some people just want to come in and be like, can you what do you think? And other people are like, sign me up, get me started right away. I feel terrible. I have this family history of osteoporosis and I want to avoid it. And so I start a patient on medications and then I see them back pretty routinely until we get them in a regimen that is working for them, that's helping them feel better. And sometimes that takes a lot of tweaking. Like you have to know I mean, sometimes I have really tricky patients where it's like specific weeks out of the month, they have terrible, like a feeling of impending doom, or they have like, and we have to work on that, and that takes some time. So I see them pretty regularly until we get them to the point, and they usually have other goals.
Yeah.
So if we're talking, I mean, it really just depends. It's super personalized. That's what I love about my practice, is that no treatment plan is going to be the same as somebody else. So that is kind of the
That's
special part of it is that we figure out what each patient needs, and that's where we're going to go. But I
Nice.
see them pretty regularly.
And if somebody wants to be a patient, do they have to be referred to you? Can they reach out to you? What do they do there?
I am cash pay. I do not take insurance, and the reason is because I want time with patients. And so they just can, right now I have a bit of a wait list. That wait list is opening up next week. And we will be moving people off of the wait list and onto the schedule. So that's, I don't know at time of airing where we'll be, if I'll have things actually opened up, or if it will be a waitlist situation. If you go onto my website right now, it just says to email the office or to submit an inquiry. And then you end up, my assistant will get that information and add to the wait list.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
Thanks so much.
Good
It was
stuff.
fun. Thanks for having me.
Here
We're here for the health of it.
for the health of it.